Your dad said something to you just before he died, and you were just 12 years old. He said to you,
Yes.
"Make me proud." I have a
He
feeling
did.
that you've done just that.
I hope and pray I have in the calling of my own life and my journey since that monumental moment as a 12-year-old where I lost my dad. It propelled me on a path of grief, but also on finding my own faith and treating every day as a gift. But we were just like many people can relate to. One day we were hanging out together as a family, and the next day he was gone. And I was blessed that in the middle of the night, in between heart attacks, he knew in his spirit that he was going to be with the Lord. And he said, "Get my children now. I need to speak with my children." And I was, rustled out of bed in the middle of the night, and I didn't understand what was going on, but I was able to visit with him. It didn't bring closure for me, but in those moments when we talked about the mundane things of life, he said to make him proud. And it has been certainly something that grounds me in my own journey through mountaintops and valleys by the grace of God as I walk out my own calling.
One of the things that you discuss in the book that I find so very powerful is that when you speak of courage, which you do a lot in the book, you talk about courage as a choice, not something that is just necessarily hardwired in us.
Yeah.
Tell us about how courage can be our choice.
Well, it's a common feeling. We can all relate to being fearful. And some people think that those of us like me, I flew fighter jets, that somehow we don't have fear. And it's just not true. I believe, and I look at my own journey by telling stories of bringing you into the A-10 cockpit for my first ever takeoff. No two-seat models, no simulators. First flight was solo. And it was a 10-year journey to get there through a lot of detours and derailments. But finally, I was going to achieve my dream. And I felt fearful in that moment. I wasn't absent of fear, but I had to make a choice. I was either going to taxi in and say, "You know what, I just can't do this," and allow the fear to take me over, or I was going to push up the power and take off afraid. And look, people of faith, you can relate to this. Sometimes people pray, "Lord, take away this fear, and then I'll step out." I truly believe God was calling us to do things afraid, to take off afraid, and trust Him that the fear doesn't have any power over us. And when we do that, then we build courage because we realize, we were able to do it. The fear didn't hold us back. And that then gives us the courage for the next challenge. It's like an athlete building a muscle memory. Don't let fear hold you back. We know that's not from God. You need to step out in the midst of the fear, do things afraid, and God's got you, and you'll realize that the fear doesn't have any power over you.
I got to tell you this. One of the biggest thrills I ever had in my life was getting to fly in an F-16 when I was governor, and so I was commander-in-chief of our Air Guard. I stepped away from that, and I said, people who can fly fighter jets, they're a different breed of cat than the rest of us, because I don't think most people appreciate you're flying the craft, you've got the weapon system, the navigation system, you're doing it all by yourself. It's an extraordinary challenge to do that. You were the first woman to do it. Did you face a lot of pushback from people who said, this is no place for women to be in a combat mission?
I did. And look, there was adversity. It was my calling to serve and fight for America. And the airplane didn't care if I was a boy or a girl. And so when I was finally given that opportunity, I was just so blessed. But it wasn't easy. There were certainly some people who had some insecurities about it. And we had to prove to them that we belong, prove to them that we had the skills. And there were some times of isolation for sure. But again, I go back to my faith. There were many days where I got up and got on my knees and said, "God, give me the strength to get through today, to focus on the things that I can control, that I can study hard and I can prepare well and I can learn from my mistakes. And don't be overwhelmed by, feeling like the fate of how people view women in the military is on your shoulders. Just put one foot in front of the other, push up the power, get through this mission." And I just had to get through that really one day at a time.
Well, it's a great story. Before I let you go, let's talk about the issue of the elections this year. You're in a tough race for the U.S. Senate. Let us know, what happens if the Democrats were to take control of the Senate? I mean, that would change a lot of things. What happens?
Well, there's a lot at stake, Governor Huckabee, and I'm standing on the wall. I've fought for our freedoms in uniform. If we have, think about for a moment, this will give you nightmares tonight. Biden, Schumer, and Pelosi in charge, and their agenda is so far out of touch and out of step with America, mainstream America. I've been fighting for our freedoms our whole lives. This really serving in this new combat zone is a part of my calling to continue to serve. The oath of office I took is the same I took as a military officer. And I had a really tough route to even get into the House. In 2012, I thought I won. I went to freshman orientation, voted for the speaker, and I had to go home and concede. In 2014, I ended up winning by 167 votes. And during the toughest days, I put up 2 sticky notes on my mirror. I talk about this in the book, in my bathroom: hope and trust. And this year, and I eventually prevailed. This year, my sticky notes for 2020, before I ever would have imagined what we'd be facing, are gratitude, peace, and joy. This is going to be a tough fight, as you know, but I've been through tough fights before. I share them in Dare to Fly. And I also want people to go to daretofly.us. You can share your inspiring stories with me, and I really need to hear them. I want to hear them because I get inspired every day.
Senator Martha McSally, we need you on that wall, and I want to say thanks for joining us. Keith Bilbrey is going to tell our viewers how they can keep up with the senator and get their copy of this terrific new book by Senator Martha McSally, Dare to Fly. Keith?
Gladly, Governor. Dare to Fly is available now at Amazon and all major booksellers. You can find more details at daretofly.us and keep up with the senator's work at her official website, McSally.senate.gov. You can also follow @SendMcSallyAZ on both Facebook and Twitter.